Hello everyone, welcome to this Alps webinar on setting aspirational targets. My name is Sue and I'm going to be with you for the next half hour or so, and we're going to talk through the aspirational target setting methodology of Alps. Before we get started, there is the facility to ask questions. So if you need some clarification on anything that I've said, please just pop it in the questions panel. We'll do our best to try and get back to you throughout the webinar, but sometimes we're on our own, so we'll do that as much as we can, or we'll email you at the end. Okay, so let's get started and let's look at the purpose of today's webinar. I'm going to talk you through the methodology that we use to generate minimum expected grades. Now, I'm going to show you some data at Key Stage 5, but if you're listening at Key Stage 4, it's exactly the same principle. So this webinar is suitable for both key stages. I'm then going to talk about how those minimum expected grades might be used by subject staff to set their own targets around those MEGs. And then briefly, we'll take a look at Connect Interactive, but I do have some help videos on that. So today's mostly about methodology. I'm going to sort of put a caveat on at the very start, because I'm going to talk quite generically. Now, we know that every student sitting in front of you is an individual, so this is the generic methodology, okay? And I understand that when you have your class sitting in front of you, you want to actually target set around that individual student and make exceptions for them, particularly if you're in a creative arts subject. And so bear that in mind as I'm talking through. I'm just doing it generically, and you will want your subject staff to be looking at these young people in front of you as individuals, okay? Now, this is on our website. And really, it's sort of the year with Alps and embedding Alps across the school. We are sort of just past results day, and we're starting to look at reviewing subject review. How did subjects get on in their examinations? And we might be looking at that in Alps Connect Interactive. And we're kind of starting the process of target setting now. You'll notice as you go through the year, by these numbers, that I've got review targets at various different points. And that's good practice, really, to have an opportunity to review those targets as you go through, because it may be that you need to be more aspirational with some students than with others. So that's just sort of good practice. I've added in various monitoring points in there, and on the website and in Connect Data, we have lots of help and videos and other webinars that we're going to talk about various different aspects of that spiral. So we're just looking at the target setting sort of start point today. Okay. All right. Now, I did say I was going to show you the some A-level material. So this is it. As I say, there's mirroring this at Key Stage 4. We're going to talk about exactly the same thing. So this is a snip, if you like, from the national benchmarks for A-level, this table. And this is the table that was generated from the 2017 DFE data. Now, if you are at Key Stage 4, that will be the 2017 Key Stage 4 data, and you will have an individual table too in Wales, if you're listening in from Wales. So for the purposes of today, I'm just going to use this. Now, this is the national benchmarks, and I'm going to talk you through how Alps works at the 75% line here. Okay, so let's talk about the theory. So what have we got? Every student at Key Stage 5 is banded into one of 11 bands based on their prior attainment, and at Key Stage 5, that is their average GCSE score. So this band across the top here is the prior attainment band at Key Stage 4. So then what we look at is we look at individual prior attainment bands, and we look at the average grades achieved by student in each band. Okay, so I am going to just take that first band. So these are our highest prior attainers at Key Stage 4. So these are the students who had, if you're in England, sort of the 8s and the 9s, and in Wales, those are the students at the top, sort of A star A. And we look at how they performed on average across their A levels. Okay, this is from the 2017 outcomes. So on average, the top provider in the data set last summer achieved 132 UCAS points, or an A star minus on average across their subjects at A level. Okay, that's a really key word, that, on average. Okay. So that then becomes the top of that prior attainment table. Now, what Alps is based on is it's based on, okay, what did the provider in the top 25%, so what did that provider at the 75th percentile get on average with the students in that prior attainment band? All right, so there's our number, our magic number. And there's our magic grade. So 124.33, and that is equivalent to an A+. So therefore, that becomes the minimum expected grade for any young people that you have in that highest prior attainment banding. All right, the average minimum, 2 keywords. So those minimum expected grades, I'll call them MEGs from now on, if that's okay. So those MEGs then represent the average grade, or if you want to take that point score, which students reached if you put them in the top 25% of providers in the country. Okay. Now, in Alps terms, that means that overall as a school, if you got all of your young people that in each of those prior attainment bands, then you would be red hot. You would have made progress, your young people would have made progress equivalent to the top 25% of schools in the country. And that, in essence, is the aspiration of Alps, to hit that top 25% and therefore to be red hot. Okay? Okay, so sorry, let me just go back. So if I took that table for every one of those prior attainment bands across, then I would have a minimum average grade or a minimum expected grade for each of those prior attainment bands for each of my students. Okay, so the first thing that I do, and I'm going to take you through Connect data in just a minute. So the first thing I do is I generate these minimum expected grades for all of my young people. Okay, so I hope that's okay so far. By the way, this table is in the Alps guide, which I will talk about in a moment, and I'll show you where you can get that on Connect data. Right then, so 2 keywords we used, average and minimum. So what I'm going to take you through now is I'm going to take you through how you might then start to set some targets by subject. Now, staff need to understand their own thermometers. So if you've seen an Alps report before, then what each thermometer has got, each subject thermometer, is a unique set of values, which I will show you as I go through this little section. And basically, in my class, I have a group of young people with very different prior attainment bands at Key Stage 4. And therefore, I should know by this point now what my minimum expected grade is for my students sitting in front of me. So if they all got that, if every single one of them miraculously got their minimum expected grade, then the Alps calculation surrounding that, minimum expected grade means that as a subject teacher, I get an Alps score of 1.00. So the Alps thermometers revolve around 1. The Alps calculations revolve around 1. So that is, just let me recap, that's if every student in my class gets their minimum expected grade, I get a score, keyword score, not grade, a score of 1. What I need to know as a subject teacher is what my score of 1 plots out to on my unique subject thermometer. Okay, and by the way, just while I'm saying this, I was deputy head for many years, and I did this at the beginning of every single year as a staff inset, so that everyone reminded themselves of what the Alps methodology was and how to set their targets by subject. So where's that score of 1 getting me? Now, what I've done is I've created a thermometer there, and what I've done is I've just plotted some subjects on, so you can just get a feel at A level and GCSE what a 1 means to you. So I personally am a biology teacher, so I knew that if I was to get an Alps score of 1, every student getting their minimum expected grade, then that would put me way up top of the thermometer. It would give me a grade 2, and I'll show you why in a second. But that would plot me up here, which means that I would be making progress in line with the top 10% of biology departments in the country. If I was a media studies teacher and I got a 1, then I would find myself further down the thermometer at a grade 6, bottom 40% of media studies departments. And this is because students make better progress relative to their minimum expected grades in some subjects compared to others. It does not mean that one subject is more difficult than another. There are lots of different factors that you need to take into account, okay? But these are the facts of the matter. At GCSE, I've just plotted a few subjects there. So with my chemists at GCSE, I had to do better than minimum expected grade with them if I'm going to progress up the thermometer. Whereas in geography at GCSE, if I hit the minimum expected grade, then I hit red. Okay, I hope that's okay so far. So far, so good. Okay, so an Alps score of 1 basically is going to yield different Alps grades. So these are the Alps grades 1 through 9. So the score of 1 is going to yield very different grades depending on that subject because of the progress that they make nationally. Got that? Right, so now I understand that as a subject teacher. What I've now got to do is I've now got to look at my unique thermometer, and I've now got to look at their MEGs, and I target set in line. So as I said, I'm a biology teacher. So I know that a score of 1, i.e. all MEGs reached, is going to get me red hot. So I might target set at a subject level at the MEG. Okay, so I might set all of my students a target of that MEG, so that I know if I get a 1, then that makes me a red hot biology department. Whereas if I'm a media studies teacher, then if I target set at the MEG, then that only puts me on a grade 6. So I'm likely to target set 1 up from the MEG, maybe not for all, but for many. And if you're Pixel School, then you're possibly familiar with the Alps +1 mantra. It doesn't mean that you necessarily target set everyone 1 up from the MEG, because you have to understand that thermometer, okay? And the last bullet point there is reiterating what I said at the start. Every student in front of you is an individual, and therefore there may be other factors you want to take into account other than my mathematical calculation. So for example, in art, if your MEG is a grade C/D at A level, but you know that student is a phenomenal artist and got a 9 at GCSE, then you're clearly going to want to set targets higher than C/D at A level. So that's the theory, but obviously there are exceptions to those rules. Okay. Good, right, let me just talk you through that then, showing you 2 different thermometers. So I've got a chemistry and I've got a drama and theatre studies one. Now there is my chemistry thermometer. I will find this on my Connect Interactive page for chemistry, or in my chemistry page on my in my reports. Okay, if you've not got Connect Interactive, it's on your subject page. So my chemistry thermometer, now here's the score of 1. Okay, this is the same as the biology, which is why biology was plotted up here. So the top provider in the national picture with their chemists got 1.05. So that means that they pretty much hit their minimum expected grade. Now, just an aside, 0.2 at A level is 1 grade per entry. So a 0.05 is a quarter of students got better than their MEGs, i.e. 0.05 is a quarter of the 0.2. Okay, don't worry if you didn't get that bit. The idea is just your minimum expected grade is going to give you a 1. The top chemistry department got 1.05, slightly above the MEG. So therefore, if I then compare that to drama, their top number is 1.26. Okay, so their students in the top provider in the country are doing very much better than the MEG. Now, the key figure there is the one at the 75th percentile, that line there. So in chemistry, it's 0.92. So what that means is if some of my students drop from the MEG and I don't get my score of 1.00, I have the potential to still be a red hot chemistry teacher. Whereas look at in drama, I do not. If everyone hits their MEGs, that puts me between a 4 and a 5. Okay, so it's quite different progress being made in those two subjects. So let me just give you an example. So this particular chemistry department had 16 students and they got 1.02. And the drama department, same school, 26 students, they got 1.04. The chemistry department maps to a grade 2. The drama department maps to a grade 4. So even though the drama department got a higher score, they actually end up with a lower grade because students make better progress in drama and theatre studies nationally than they do in chemistry. Okay, so it's absolutely crucial to understand when you're target setting at the subject level. Now, the summary of subject thermometers can be found in the Alps guide, and there they are. There's a sample there that will keep you up at night. If you're at all interested in the statistics, it is an interesting page to read, and then comparing it to the GCSE one is also quite interesting if you're like me and you quite like data. Okay. So just a summary of that then. Same methodology at Key Stage 4 and 5. Now we're going to talk about Connect data now, and we're going to look at how those MEGs appear for you in Connect Interactive or your reports. And we're going to talk now about putting those targets by subject into Connect data. And then I'm going to show you the fact that you can actually export all of those now from Connect data and upload into your management information system. We are generating another webinar, if you're a data manager listening, with a user guide on how to do this target setting. I am going to take you through this, therefore, at a rapid pace. If you need to understand the methodology behind it and the ins and outs of adding data to Connect, please do watch our target setting webinar for data managers, okay? So here we go. There's a target setting area of Connect data where we're going to add all of our target setting and monitoring grades. You've probably done this bit in the last couple of weeks for your results. So you're going to click into target setting mode, which looks like that. Check, you're in 2018-19, okay? Now, if you've got a cohort set up for the purposes of the coming year, so you've already set up your year 12s, then great. If you haven't, you're going to need to set up a cohort data for those year 12s or incoming year 10s or whichever year group you're looking at. The good news is you only have to do that once for the whole of the year, and all of your monitoring will read off of that, as will your exam results at the end. Okay, so you do that now just the once. So then you are going to enter custom targets into a new target grades file. So when you click on that add grades data, it's going to offer you the option of doing it in target setting mode. And you're going to enter, and you've got the option to input your custom targets there. Now, what I mean by custom targets are those targets that you've just generated according to your unique thermometer or any other way that you currently do target setting. Okay, right then, so I'm just going to pop into my Connect data just for a second, just to show you what I've done. Okay, so I put in target setting. So I put in my data file here. Oops, click into that. I put a target setting grade file in. I'm going to just change that to 2017-18. So there's my year 12 target setting here. Now that little arrow means that that's target setting mode. I misnamed that, by the way, 18-19 I meant. So that's my targets in there. So just show you that it's got my year 12 students, all the student IDs at A level, mapped to their subjects, and all of their custom targets. So that's the school targets that I've decided on from there. And if I go into Connect, so back to my home page, and I click on target setting now, I can generate an export to Excel, or I can generate some PDFs of targets by any of those three different things. I'm jumping around a bit here, but I have basically then Alps targets by subject. That's what I've generated, okay? I'm missing a teaching set, but there's the minimum expected grade, and there are their custom targets, all right? And in Excel, that looks like that. So I've got the subjects, I've got the teaching sets, minimum expected grade, and custom targets, okay? So all of that from that page there. Okay, now whilst I'm in Connect data, I'm just going to show you two other things. There is some user guides and downloads. You will find the Alps guide there with all the benchmarks in it for England or for Wales and Northern Ireland. And what I'm going to show you as well is I'm just going to check my aspirational target setting. So I want to check just whether my teacher is being aspirational with the target setting. So what I have created in my workspaces for year 12 is a target check, okay? So all I have done with that target check is I have just taken that file and put it in there as a monitoring file, okay? And I've called it target check just so that people don't get confused if it's a data collection point. Now what that means I can do is it means I can go into my Connect Interactive and I can pop into subjects and I can now see a value added score target check look for all of my subjects, okay? So I want all of those to be red because I want them all to be aspirational. I want my subject teachers to have target set very aspirationally, okay, which I'm pretty much there on, but not with my business studies department, okay? So let me just pop into business studies. And what I can do with that subject teacher now is I can say, you know, that's not aspirational target setting. Your targets are being set so that as a department, you're only actually going to reach that grade 6. So if you click on students and you turn on the what if, now what I can do is I can now say, okay, so you're saying that student there, that's now for grade, remember this is a target setting, so that is the custom target that the business studies teacher has put in for that student, a grade E. So what we can do now is we can actually say, well, really, can we be a bit more aspirational? Their MEG is a C/D. So if I then just click up to a C grade, can you see that thermometer, that lozenge on the thermometer moving? So actually, if I target set that student at a C, this is a B/C MEG, whereas there's a D target. So let's do the same with that and pull them up to a B. And same with this one, the higher of the two grades maybe. So you get the idea that you can actually do that as a modeling exercise if you've got a target check mode monitoring point in Connect Data, and you can actually have that really powerful conversation with your business studies teacher or whoever to talk about how they're target setting and the aspirational aspect of that. I hope that makes sense. I have got it on a summary just in a second, but basically just to summarize that is that in order to embed that across the school, if you look at the schools at the top of the Alps thermometers overall, they're really using that target setting process to train students and to train staff, but really getting the buy-in from students. I used to do assemblies at the beginning of each year with the incoming 12s and remind the 13s as to how their targets are being set, and therefore they then have a voice to have a conversation with their subject teachers about those targets. I used to get them to calculate their own minimum expected grades, and the key thing there is to point out that these are minimum. So there's no ceiling to this. In terms of a discussion with your subject teacher, you can be as aspirational as you like. But what it does is it really, really empowers the students to get that dialogue going. The third bullet point there is a plea, really. If you're serious about the target setting process and also monitoring, then I'm sure we'll all agree that to build that time into the quality assurance cycle is absolutely key. Because otherwise, and we've all done it, haven't we? You find yourself at a monitoring point and you say, well, these targets need reviewed, or the monitoring point needs reviewed, but there's not time built in. So it's really a plea to sort of have that time built into your quality assurance. Involving parents, question mark. If you're a big sixth form college, that's going to be more difficult, I understand. But at the beginning of each year, again, we used to have an information evening for parents and talk them through this target setting, just so that they understood when we sent reports home to them a few times a year, that they understood what those meant and what those targets meant. And the final thing is just an idea, really, is showing students to say, right, you know, in the past we've had students at that prior attainment band and they have, you know, smacked their targets out of the ballpark. So it's basically a minimum expected grade, it's not a ceiling. I've gone through this in Connect Data, but just so you've got it on your screen there, I added a custom target as a monitoring point. I generated my subject value added page, and then I'm able to do some what ifs on those subjects where I might be a little bit less confident that they're being aspirational in their target setting. Okay, I hope that's all been clear. If you have any questions, then if you've asked them, then I'll try and get to them in a second. If not, then there's lots of other information that we've got. So on our knowledge base, which there was a link to right next to the download section in Connect Data homepage, I've written some staff checklists, and I've spent quite a lot of time doing those and thinking about the types of questions that you might want to ask. I've also linked them to some short videos, much shorter than this webinar, just 2-3 minute videos. This one's a little bit longer. You might want to use some of those in staff training and getting that message across all of your staff. This one particular is the target setting staff checklists, but I've done it for monitoring, I've done it for subject review, and I've done it for preparing for the following academic year in the summer term. So do have a look at those. I hope they're helpful, and I hope they maybe just allow you to reflect on some of the questions. In addition, there's a briefing paper that goes along with this webinar, setting aspirational targets with students. That's on our website. There's a target setting webinar for data managers going up there, and there's lots of help videos from that staff checklist in the knowledge base. And so please do, use those and search the knowledge base for all the target setting information. Thank you very much for being with me this afternoon. I am going to leave the webinar running. I will try and answer any questions that have popped in. In the meantime, do have a great year, a positive year ahead, and do let us know if we can help you in any way. Thank you very much.